A multinational corporation, sure, it's a big logo, but ultimately it's a group of people that need help with something, want to do something, and they'll either like you and your team and your product, or they won't, right? So if you focus on understanding the people and their mission and how they're measured and how to support that group, you can work with the biggest companies in the world and thrive as a result.
Today, I'm super excited because we have Igor Faletski, founder of Mobify, a huge Vancouver success company. Let me set this up, please. Igor is the co-founder of Mobify, the leading mobile web platform provider, powering hundreds of millions of mobile page views for its e-commerce and publisher customers around the world. Founded in Vancouver in 2007, Mobify has been focusing on helping businesses adapt to the fast-changing digital and mobile world. In October 2020, Mobify was acquired by the Salesforce, which is amazing. And in his spare time, Igor enjoys open water swimming and reading world history books, which I am going to talk to you about. Welcome, Igor. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, I kind of want to touch actually on that the world history books thing. Is there a certain genre of history that you like, or timeline, or anything like that?
You know, it's funny. I find it to be a very calming experience to read about the Middle Ages or the Exploration Age. I don't have a specific kind of region I look at, but the current book I'm reading is called Fatal Shores, and it's about the history of Australia after the British came there. So how it started, how it developed, and I just find it fascinating.
Wow, that's really interesting stuff. I don't know if you know, but I actually did my undergrad in history, and I focused on Russian-Canadian military relations. So that's why when I see this, I'm a huge fan of well, just the things that happened and how they made huge change in the world. And well, you know what? We're going to talk about the huge change that you brought to the world here. So let's go back in a historical sense. I guess 2007, maybe a little bit earlier, where you missed a bus, and that created this aha moment for you. Tell us about this.
Yeah, definitely. So 07, wow, that's definitely going back in history, right? So it's my last year as a few comp sci undergrad. Same for John Boxall, my partner in crime at Mobify, our CTO. And mobile is coming in a big way. So iPhone just came out or just was announced. Android popped up as well. And we started seeing that mobile is going to be a big way that changes how brands and their audiences interact and how people want to access computing in general. So start looking for ways to use mobile to solve our own problems. And being students, going to Burnaby Mountain, catching the bus, that was an issue. So I remember in 2 or 3 nights, we wrote a scraper to get schedules off the TransLink website with then no permission and pipe it to an SMS gateway before Twilio was a thing. And thanks to some support from professors, it kind of went viral on campus and people started using it. And that was the very first project that we worked on that inspired us to go from a project to a company and then build mobile platforms for different industries, different use cases for over a decade after that. So there was definitely a very fateful bus that we missed and then caught.
Well, that's fantastic. And I got to admit, over the years, I've engaged with John a lot too. And he must be a great business partner because he's a great guy, super smart, big heart. So, congratulations for finding a good business partner and right back at him. So you started with this bus application. How do you evolve from a bus application to where you are now?
Well, it's definitely through a number of stages, Chris. So Mobify was in business for almost 14 years before we got acquired. And it takes several generations for any technology product to last this long and grow. So for us, our first idea was, okay, let's go sell this mobile bus app to different cities. Let's call Portland. Let's go Seattle. Of course, a call nobody picked up. So it's very hard to sell to government. It's not the first vertical you want to go into as an undergrad. Right. So we went to publishing as the next sector. We saw there's more and more of a need to run mobile sites. That's like, 2010. So we closed a deal with Condé Nast, which runs Wire, GQ, kind of did a bunch of that. Then the publishing market got small because it's not the biggest industry, but there was more and more inbound from retailers saying, hey, we have an e-commerce site. There's more and more mobile traffic coming up. Can you help us solve this with your product? And initially our product didn't support it, but like we raced around the clock to add support for secure transactions, and then became a mobile commerce platform when that was a new wave coming up. And then ultimately, e-commerce was the market that Mobify matured in and grew a lot in, and we stayed in for a decade. It was definitely a few steps that got there, and a few products in between that didn't go anywhere. We just did something, and then it flopped right away, and then we moved into something else. So it takes a lot of iteration. It takes definitely a big wave that is getting bigger to support something like that. Like mobile was 1% of traffic on sites when we started, and now it's the majority of traffic. So every year, this story kind of got bigger, but we needed to have different products to make sure we provide value to the audiences like there and then. So that was a very interesting journey for sure.
Well, very, very cool. And I've always got to say too, you guys, you can tell you got in the early days because your name's awesome. Like to have Mobify, in those days, I think that says a lot right there. Well, what's it like working with like multinational brands, and like who's the first besides Condé Nast? Who's the big one that you closed?
Yeah, so Wired Magazine was the first one. We kind of went in their door and convinced them that we had a great product to make a mobile site, and they gave us $1,000 for a year. We're like, it's not a lot of money. We should probably ask for more money because we can't pay rent, right? So I think our big breaks after that were this site called Threadless. Maybe I'm dating myself, but that was a big t-shirt e-commerce site like 15 years ago. So I messaged somebody on LinkedIn that was a CTO there, and he loved the idea of launching a mobile version. So we got them. Then somehow we got on Mashable, I think. And then on Mashable, somebody at Starbucks saw us, and we got the Starbucks RFP, and we won, as a company of 11 people, a contract to power their MDOT site. And it was just completely unreal. And I think David maybe didn't realize how small we were. So I had to rapidly learn how to do big projects and evolve our product to have the performance that they wanted. But I think one insight from that time is, if you're a company betting on a new wave that's getting bigger, you'll be first in line when big brands want to do some sort of experiment, right? So it was mobile then. Today, it could be conversational interfaces. It could be machine learning tech. It could be some sort of fintech use cases. That's the benefit of being a startup. The large companies will take a long time to get to that space, and you can move quicker and get huge brands to use your product.
Well, you said you had 11 employees by the time, probably including you and John, I assume. How long did it take for you to go from the bus app to 11 employees? And what's the timeline we're talking about here?
It actually wasn't that fast. It was probably about 3 years. And the first couple of years were not fast at all, right? We took a long time to actually work with Translink, who was an amazing customer to us for a few years, but it wasn't an instant deal. Then figure out that, it's not the best vertical maybe to scale in, go to different verticals. So the first 3 years were quite slow. And we were thinking, should we actually keep going or stop? But mobile was a bigger deal every year. And just the excitement kept us going. And then at some point, the business caught on and started growing much faster.
Well, very cool. No, did you ever have any challenges? I mean, with the multinationals being a Canadian or a Vancouver company, did you ever have any challenges convincing them that you could do the job?
Well, as the saying goes on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog, right? And I think the benefit of just being a company with a cool name that seems, again, if you look at 10 years ago, that was definitely in vogue. And I think we got a lot of trust because we really focused on the mobile segment early, but it was definitely hard to figure out how to do support globally for customers for the first time, how to do even enterprise sales cycles. Back then, there was not a lot of content. So there was no SaaStr. Y Combinator was like in its third batch. So a lot of that was just figuring out and making some mistakes, and then hiring great people to go the distance with us and help us figure it out. But ultimately, you realize that a multinational corporation, sure, it's a big logo, but ultimately it's a group of people that need help with something, want to do something, and they'll either like you and your team and your product, or they won't, right? So if you focus on understanding the people and their mission and how they're measured and how to support that group, you can work with the biggest companies in the world and thrive as a result. So it's really all about the people, both on the customer side and internally in a startup building software. That was one of my lessons through the years for sure.
Well, I think that's really interesting because too often I see, especially in the startup world, it's like technology for the sake of technology, and sometimes you can be lucky with that. But at the end of the day, and this is what we always say is, hey, we're just a business solutions company like ourselves because we're just trying to solve business problems, and technology is the way you do that. And clearly you understood that pretty quickly, which I think is interesting because you at SFU, what you studied computer science.
That's right. Yeah, same for John.
Same for John. So you were on the engineering side of things, and then you went into the business side of things. How did you guys arm wrestle? How did you decide that you would do the business side and he would do the tech side? Or I'm sure there was a little bit of lap over, but how did you decide who would do what?
Great question. So actually, for the first 2 years, we both did a bit of coding and a bit of business stuff. And then I realized that I kind of suck at coding compared to John. He's just so much faster and is just great at it. So we specialized, and I think that really allowed us to build a better team. So I think it was a lucky coincidence that we had complementary skill sets and we worked together in university before starting a company for 5 years on projects. So we kind of knew each other to begin with. But yeah, I'm very grateful that I got a CTO like John, who is now working with me at Salesforce. And actually, John just had his third baby yesterday. So
congratulations,
John, Michelle, you're doing great.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, congratulations on that. That's exciting. Well, I remember following you guys and seeing your office because you guys were down at, was it Hastings or Pender at one point, right?
Yeah, a bunch of different spaces. First in Gastown, all the break-ins, then in Yellowtown, and then we were on Georgia and Granville for a few years after that.
Mm-hmm. But one thing that I've always been amazed by you guys, because I have visited you over the years, is you have one of the nicest offices. Like honestly, I could tell you guys were on top of it because heck, you come out of SkyTrain and there's Mobify. Like you don't get to see that too often, especially next to Sony and all these big names, which is really impressive. But when the acquisition happened, did you get to keep the office or did you have to move? What happened with your current situation?
Yeah, so Salesforce has a great new office in Vancouver. It's on Seymour and Water Street. So actually, I think the sign went up on that building a few months ago. So we're going to be working out of that office going forward. It's still kind of imaginary because I'm sitting here at home. You're sitting at home probably, right? So it doesn't feel like we have an office, but that's going to be the new location down the road. Yeah,
well, I won't lie to you. I'm actually at the office today, but it's the first time I've been here in weeks. So it's, and I think I'm the only one here. So, it is what it is. Well, you know what? Why don't we talk? I mean, we're at home because obviously COVID is, what it is. How? Like, I mean, I don't want to say COVID's. COVID's obviously an awful situation and all that, but it's definitely created a lot rapid change and forced people, especially in mobile, especially in these new technologies. Has it affected Mobify in a positive way, as well as the obvious, culture staffing sort of way? But has there been a positive change that's come out of it?
So I think for everybody in e-commerce technology, this has been just incredible and a crazy year, right? Because all the shopping went from retail to online. I think for a lot of businesses that have multi-channel and that have store and online, it's still hard, right? Because your stores can't be open, so you're only using your e-commerce side. But for e-commerce specifically, it has been a fantastic story of growth. And what we've seen that's been really cool is that a lot of industries that maybe were lagging a little bit in e-commerce adoption are now going head first and moving very quickly. So B2B commerce is moving from pen and paper and purchasing orders to e-commerce format. If you look at grocery, if you look at automotive, if you look at other verticals, suddenly it's all going to e-commerce. If somebody told you 5 years ago that you would buy a Tesla on your smartphone, you'd be like, I don't know about that. And now it's like, how else would you buy a car if not on your mobile device or your desktop at the very least, right? So that shift has been brought forward by 5 years, and it's an amazing time of innovation, and also a really important time for companies like Salesforce and Mobify and everybody else to help brands actually make the shift, because it's vital for their bottom line, for their existence, to achieve excellence there, and really focus on that at Salesforce.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the companies that are having challenges right now, on the services side, it's just harder for them to scale. And, I think leveraging the technology, I mean, we want to do everything we can, obviously, to, it's our community. So we want to do everything we can to help them. But it is nice, at least on the sales side of things, that, you're offering these tools to really, well, keep people in business, which is great. Well, you know what? Let's talk about some of the solutions. So, you've come up with a lot of solutions, and you've already touched on some. You kill fast, or you kill some. You keep going with. But can you tell me with, like, for example, Live Vote or Mobify or Mobify Studio? Tell me about these experiences or about creating these products.
Yeah, so it really came from a lot of observations that we had and our team had about, I can use this new mobile channel or feature to do something interesting. So Live Vote, for example, was a way to do SMS voting. It fed into like this Flash interface with pie charts showing votes coming in, and we, I think, worked with the Global News to actually have it live on a few programs. So it was definitely a niche thing then. And again, if you look at it now with Twilio, everybody's doing it in some way. So that was interesting, but there couldn't be a big market for that product. So we just continued it fairly quickly. Mobify was written for Symbian phones before there was an iPhone app store. Essentially, it was a kind of an Instagram knockoff. It was a process that took your photos with your permission from your phone and then made a website that people could look at. We couldn't distribute it. We wrote the app in Symbian, but there was no easy way for an indie developer of like 3 or 4 folks to get on the App Store. You had to be like a major company to get on those wireless carrier app stores, if you remember that. And then, of course, later on, iOS App Store, Google Play came in and changed everything.
Completely.
So for me, the lesson there is definitely timing. You can have the same idea 10 years in a row, and the winner in many cases is the one that's going to ride the wave when the ecosystem is ready, when people are ready to consume a new way of doing things. And that was definitely a cool journey. But the product that I'm most excited about is the most recent one, probably a typical thing for you as well. So we had a front as a service platform to essentially power super large scale websites based on APIs, based on Amazon Lambda serverless technology, with latest and greatest tools like React, Node, and Express. And that's going to be a big part of our product at Salesforce Commerce Cloud going forward. So if you're somebody listening to this podcast that wants to work with those technologies and wants to work on e-commerce, we have a bunch of job openings right now. Please give me a shout.
And it'd be a great company to work with. So I totally appreciate that. I hope we have good reach for you. Well, you know what? Let's touch a little bit about Salesforce, because I think having partnerships with large anchor companies, and there's not that many in Vancouver, but they're definitely they're coming in. Like Salesforce is a really good business strategy. Can you tell me how the relationship started?
Absolutely. So actually, we started to work with Demandware, which was later acquired by Salesforce. It was is a leader in e-commerce technology. So for us, it was many years of working towards a shared vision and working in many shared customer accounts to do complementary things. We got to know the people, and the rest is history. So what was really great is just to see how progressive Salesforce is, and they're very public about it. They're all about getting involved locally wherever they are. And I think it's something that a lot of big tech companies should emulate, right? Because certainly there's a big global opportunity, but we have to give back to our community. So if you look at Salesforce, and Mark Benioff, the CEO, has a big program around homelessness reduction in San Francisco, I want to make sure that we take those lessons and bring them back home to Vancouver, because we have a lot of the same problems. And that value alignment has been a key part of success as partners for years, and now also a big reason why it's a great fit for acquisition as well.
Oop. Lost Igor.
I think I am.
Aaron, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Well, Igor, I lost you. We had our first
interruption.
There we go. That is the joy of technology. What is it? 2020?
What's the last thing you heard me say?
You know what? It was gold. How about that? Well, here's a question, because you're talking about Mark Benioff and being aligned in terms of his beyond business, the culture side of everything. Have you actually spoken to Mark?
I haven't personally spoken to Mark, but he's an author of several books. He's very visible in the media, talking about his agenda for communities, and joining a company like Salesforce, giving back with volunteering, with a bunch of other ways, with philanthropy. Like it's a pretty big focus for the company, and we hope to use all that to help Vancouver and help Canada where we can.
Fantastic, because we need the help, and we also need anchor companies. We need What we need is people who have found the path. I mean, you started this in 2007, you and John, and you found a path. And there's an acquisition, and you're going to continue going, and again with such a great company as Salesforce. Do you plan on mentoring or looking at other great younger startups or entrepreneurs and seeing how you can help them along the path? Is that something that you're interested in doing?
Super interested in it, Chris. So when we started MobilePHI, I think I mentioned it earlier, there was so little that was available to us, especially not being in Silicon Valley, being in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. So very few resources. And we said that if we ever get anywhere, we'll make sure to give back in whatever way makes sense. So the next generation after us has bigger vision and bigger companies and huge successes because it helps us, of course, as a country and as a city. But also, I think a great way to learn how to start a startup and scale is to work for entrepreneurial company. And I love meeting undergrads, new grads, people that want to work at Salesforce to also bring them in to the company and achieve the vision that we have and perhaps bring them some new skills that will help them later on. So yes, it's a huge focus area of ours, and I'd love to be as engaged as I can be.
Well, I'm really pleased to hear that because the people need help in order to get to where you are, and hopefully they can even do it faster and better than either of us have ever been able to do with just a little bit of direction. Well, you touched on something that I think is really, really interesting, because I remember it was a couple of years back. I was at UBC, and you were like the keynote speaker of this one event, and you were sharing some great information about your journey, and you could tell the students were loving it because I wanted to just go over and say hi. But you were just slammed by all the students of wanting to ask you questions. I think I just had to wave from a distance and just leave it at that, which actually made me feel bad because I left without actually saying hi to you. But you kind of touched it. Why is it so important, that you continue talking to these students then?
I think it's just so great to be able to share our lessons so the new generation can make new mistakes and move even faster. I always felt that we have so much talent here, but we need to have more anchor companies that are founded locally as well. So we all benefit from that. And I just get so much energy from being with students and answering their questions and seeing what ideas they have. It's a great way to understand what new generation is focused on, what new paradigms they're adopting for their applications, their companies. Mm-hmm. Everybody wins. So I would love to do more of that if there's an opportunity.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So one thing that I loved at university was the clubs. Like that was where I think you meet your friends for life, for example. And I see here at SFU, you started a club called Mobile Mondays. What was that all about?
As the title implies, it was about mobile technology. Mm-hmm. We felt, John and I, when we were in comps at SFU, is that it was super amazing education and really cool to learn about technology. But consumer trends are somehow like passing us by a little bit, and we wanted to bridge that and talk about things that are coming out, mobile applications, mobile hardware, and then see how we can use those trends to build projects pre-starting a company. And the effect that we had with the club is, number one, we had some great free pizza that was sponsored by SFU CompSci. Thank you, SFU, for that.
Nice.
But more importantly, just amazing people, amazing students that shared the same interest and came and joined us in the club and eventually joined us in the company. We had a number of folks that joined MobilePHI because they knew John and me from the club, and super grateful to them for their contribution and their ideas over the years. Some of our most talented engineers came out from that club that we did all together. So I agree with you. I think if you are in a university, it's just a great way to build relationships for life. Like John and I met first day of class of CompSci and worked out for us, right? So
really,
yes,
that's like a movie. I think maybe Netflix is going to buy that.
Don't waste that time. If you're in school, make sure you understand who you can work with, who you enjoy hanging out with, and maybe there's something big that happen with the company or something.
Oh, that's so true. Now, I mean, I get one question I get when I'm talking to university students is, what should I be doing? What classes should I take in order to be successful? And so my answer to that every time is, do a club that you don't even know you like. Like, do something that is so out, do dance, do singing, do something that's so out there and be uncomfortable about it and learn if you like it or not, because now's the time, So what would be the typical question you would get from a student? Because I have very specific ones I find I get. Is there any specific ones that you get that you have a good answer for that maybe we can just, give a carpet answer for right here?
That's a great question, Chris. I think a lot of people wonder, how do you find the idea that is an idea that you should start a company around? And actually don't have a good answer other than like look at things that you're personally interested in, because it typically takes a long time to become first like good enough at something, then an expert, then for the market to catch up and offer opportunities for a business like that. But if you're really excited about the underlying trend, and then you can go the distance, and then things will fall into place, right? Versus if you're trying like write a new trend every year, it's hard to find that long-term fit. So things that are small now but are guaranteed to be bigger, and things that you love working with, even if it's like initially for free because you're working on an open source project, I think that's where you should look. But that's my path, right? Some people have a natural sense, oh, like there's a business opportunity here and now to go and sell. And I think over time, I learned some of that, but that wasn't my path. I came from being excited about a core trend of technology that I knew is going to be big, and then finding out a way to build a business on that shared passion that we had.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I mean, talking about that, so you're originally from Vladivostok, right?
That's right. You even pronounced it right.
Well, that's Vlad of the East. So, я могу говорить немножко русский язык.
Wow, that's impressive.
Something like that. 5 years of that. I hope I can at least say that. But when did you come to Vancouver?
Yeah. So in September, it was our family's 20-year anniversary in Vancouver. So we came in 2000. I was almost 16 at the time. And when I came here, I was just amazed at the opportunity that I saw everywhere as an immigrant. And I want to say to everybody who is listening to this podcast who's an immigrant, you can do amazing things because the country's here to support you, and the people are amazing. So really happy that our family came here. Grateful to my parents that brought us here. It's been a blast.
Well, спасибо большое за все.
You're welcome.
Something like that. Something like that. Well, would you say then that being in Vancouver's made it easier than, say, if you did want to do a startup in Vladivostok, or even somewhere in Moscow or St. Petersburg or one of the bigger cities?
I think it's different. I think there's amazing opportunities, say in Russia or in Europe, to do startups that may be solving big regional problems, or may have some sort of like arbitrage component of amazing local talent that maybe isn't as expensive as engineers in Silicon Valley. There's great businesses that exist there, but I think I believe there's fewer of them, and I think it's still more difficult to do a startup there. But that's my read from here, right? From BC, being 2 hours away from San Francisco. So I think we definitely have more supports here. I think it's easier to be in the same time zone as Silicon Valley, have all this talent, especially in the SaaS space, people that have scaled multiple companies. Like that doesn't exist in the same way in other regions around the world. And I think that's where we can be stronger in Vancouver and in Canada.
For sure. Well, you had again, beautiful Vancouver offices over the years. Did you have offices, satellite offices, either in Toronto or in San Francisco or any of these places too?
So we had team members that work with us in the US and especially in UK. We have a team in UK right now. So we had definitely amazing people that work with us from all over the world, and some smaller locations. Yeah.
Oh, very nice. I'm always intrigued to see where people want to go next. Like, do you go to the States? Do you go to, like, for us, we had a space in the office in San Francisco. It didn't really make sense for tax reasons, for a whole bunch of reasons. It just didn't really make sense. But we are looking at Toronto now because we think, well, I mean, look at I mean, how many of the huge companies are, and exits are coming out of that area. We think there's a lot of opportunity. So I'm just intrigued to know where you guys looked.
Yeah, for us, when we had local offices over the years, a big part of that was A, providing a venue for the community to get together, and then B, also recruiting people that would be exposed to what we do at Mobify, our brand, our customers, our vision. And I think that was very useful, and hopefully the community also appreciated that. Now, though, it's all different, right? We don't even know what the future is going to look like when we go back to an office in a year. We will see. But I expect definitely like less big office investments for a lot of startups that are not Facebook or Google, because you can do a lot more things now digitally the way we couldn't do it before. So more distributed talent. I mean, we all know that, but I think it's becoming reality for small companies, but also even big ones. And that's really exciting for giving more opportunities to people, regardless of where they are, and not having to go out and invest in a local real estate to hire people somewhere.
Which is nice, and the tools are getting so good now. I mean, they're getting so good compared to 2007, when it sounds like you know writing in Symbian, or I mean, I keep imagining I tried to write an application back then, like in WAP. I don't know if you remember the old, we'll almost call it useless languages, and without the frameworks and gateways and all these wonderful things that we have now. Well, here's a question. I mean, obviously there is another acquisition that happened recently. Have you been confused yet for Slack's acquisition into Shopify, pardon me, into Salesforce yet?
Well, it's obviously all very new to, I think, everybody in the world, but I'm just super excited for the Slack team in Vancouver to join Salesforce, and of course globally. But we know quite a few folks that work there, and it's a company with a history in Vancouver as well. Yeah. And I think, to your point, how we need more anchor companies in Vancouver. Salesforce presence here has grown quite a bit, and we'll be excited to be even more involved now with Slack as part of the family with the community.
I think that's an awesome acquisition, I got to say, too. It's kind of funny. We actually used Slack in the very early days, because we were actually working on the game Tiny Spec, and we were creating the Android app for it. But we didn't even know they had a Vancouver office. We were dealing with the San Francisco office. So we got to meet a bunch of the guys down there who ended up, actually moving over to being some of the original founders into Slack, which really, really nice guys. So anyway, awesome. I wish them all the best, and I think that's a great acquisition. And you're among a royal family in my mind now, which is it says a lot about your company too. That's awesome. Well, Igor, you know what? Thank you so much. First off, again, congratulations on everything. And thank you for being such a big part of the Vancouver ecosystem. You and John, I would bump into you guys at hackathons, at events, and you're always there to help out. You're always there to, just be part of the community. And I'm excited to see, even after this exit or whatever it is, how you're going to continue to do that. And just please don't hang up the phone with me. Make sure that you still chat with me now that you're making the big time. Because I just want to continue the story and hear about the great stuff you guys do.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. It's been great to be a part of this podcast. And yes, we'll be in touch, and I'll see you at Tim Hortons at the mall where I typically see you, Chris. So
anytime. Awesome, Igor.
Thank you.
Okay.